Welcome, everyone. Today is the special day, as all the days here at What Matters are, and I have two really important guests on today. We have Debby Irving, who wrote a book called Waking Up White, and we will also be having Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. come on as well, and he is one of the founders of the White Privilege Conference, which has been going on for over 20 years. So as you see, I'm in studio alone. My guests are remote today. They're coming in from the United States. And I'm really excited because it's going to allow us to have a conversation or pose some questions and hear back from someone on the other side of the fence. So Anisha, can you bring Debby up? Welcome, Debby. Yeah, she's there. Debby, can you hear me? Yeah, there we are. Perfect. So welcome, Debby Irving. Sorry. So you are the author of a book called Waking Up White. So Debby, can you tell us a little about yourself and what inspired you and brought you to write this book in the first place?
Part of the question, what inspired me and who am I?
Yes, that was the
so
question
the
if I broke up. Sorry about that. So yes, can you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them who you are and what inspired you to write this book.
So the book came out 5 years ago. First before that was when this huge awakening at the time. I had spent 20 years point really working on diversity and trying to connect arts and education in the Boston area.
Okay.
Just north of Boston, there for my whole life. I had a white bubble experience at College West. And then I came from college and I started working in arts and education. And one of my jobs on a quite put together what was going on, why
Call and reconnect. Yeah, sure. So do you want to just pause it? Okay, Debby, our producer is going to call you via phone because it seems that you're breaking up quite a bit. So just give me a second. Anisha, you want me to come with the phone? No, I can't read the number out to you. I don't think that would be a good idea. Okay, just give me a second. Sorry, guys, this is live, so all of these glitches you get to watch.
Hi, it's Debbie. Hello. Hello.
Hello? Hello? Did I put myself in? Debbie?
Yeah, hi. I can barely hear you.
You can barely hear me? She can't hear me that well, Anisha.
Um, so here's the thing. There's a huge feedback issue.
Yeah.
So how about if I wonder if I mute the computer?
Yeah, maybe
How's that?
mute the computer.
Can
I
you
don't
hear me
any
this
feedback.
way?
Yep, I hear you perfectly now. No feedback.
Okay, I can't quite hear you, so let me try headphones, see if that
Can
works.
you hear me better now?
Not enough for an interview, and I've got it on the loudest setting, but hang on, maybe earphones will solve this
Yeah, maybe.
for us. Let's see. How about now?
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Better, yeah?
Yeah, that's good?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, good. So, Anisha, we're going to start again, I guess, or? Okay, so we'll start again. I can go? All right. Sorry, guys, we had some technical difficulty. So now we have Debby Irving on the line. She's on the phone with me, so the connection's much more secure. So, Debbie, I'm sorry. If you could start again. I did hear a bit, but I don't think the audience was able to pick it up. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what inspired you to write this book?
Right. So I grew up outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S., in a wealthy suburb, I would say wealthy white suburb, but that's sort of redundant here in the U.S. because often suburbs are very white and wealthy.
Right.
And I was there to the age of 18. I call it my white bubble childhood. And then I went to a college that was almost exclusively white. So when I got back from college, in the early 20s, I ended up working for an organization in Boston that was trying to connect inner-city, underprivileged youth to cultural institutions in downtown Boston. So that put me face-to-face with neighborhoods that I'd never seen. And I started to notice that invariably, I mean, I didn't start to notice, it was in my face, that these dilapidated neighborhoods seemed to be full of black and brown people, and these wherever I saw white people living, it was kind of shiny and very different physical appearance, very different socioeconomic reality. And I didn't yet have any understanding of systemic racism and the way resources had been diverted towards white communities for all of U.S. history. So I thought I was looking at people who needed my help.
Right.
So I jumped into what I now call, and many people call, the white savior mode. I'm trying to help and fix people who down deep, I would really, after a lot of work, realize down deep I thought these people were inferior, which means I thought I was superior. And, of course, you can imagine how people could detect that, even, like behind my smile. So there was always this elephant in the room feeling that I couldn't put my finger on, and it was being that mismatch between my intention and the impact it was having on people around me.
Okay.
And at the age of 48, at that point, I had migrated over to being a teacher in schools, and I ended up going to graduate school to get my master's in special ed. Required first course is called Racial and Cultural Identities. I think I'm going to learn about black and brown families so I can teach those kids better. And instead, I get asked to do a 6-month deep dive into my own racial and cultural identity, which, by the way, I didn't really even know I had. I could have told you I was white, but I couldn't have told you how being white had completely shaped my worldview, the material outcomes my family had enjoyed, and the psychological sense of safety, ease, and belonging that I had enjoyed my whole life. So once I got that understanding, I could not believe how much I had not been taught in schools, even though I was a history major. And I decided to write the book I wish someone had handed to me when I was 25 years old, or even now I would say had handed my parents so they could have raised me differently. And that's the book, Waking Up White. It chronicles my awakening, how I started to connect what I'd been taught with the way I was seeing the world now. And the book has been a huge success. It seems to have it's a tool, and it came at a time when people in the United States, white people in the United States, were really looking for a tool. So that's the story.
You said a lot of things that I have a lot of commentary on, a lot of questions, but I know we're under restricted time. One of the things you did mention, though, was realizing the holes in the history that you were taught. Can you tell me a bit about what was missing from what you learned?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So, in unlike Canada, where there's a real there's a lot of information that's general, and I'm not saying things are perfect, but there's a lot more information about indigenous broken treaties and indigenous land. There's really none of that here. So I was told Indians, that's what we called them then, I would now say indigenous people, had died of, and I'm not kidding, drinking too much and smallpox. The truth is, in the United States, it's an attempted genocide. I never learned about redlining, and I don't know if that happens in Canada, but redlining in the United States was a practice that began in the 1930s as part of the New Deal, and it created incredibly segregated housing. It organized cities by racial categories, put people into different categories, and manipulated that system through differential lending. So white people were able to get loans and be shown houses in certain neighborhoods that black and brown people were not.
Wow, and this is called redlining?
That was huge. I learned the GI Bill was basically, after World War II, was basically a whites-only bill, excluded all the black and brown people who also sacrificed lives to be in World War II. I could just go on and on.
And so this is not a matter of opinion or feeling, but you came to find out that there were facts, irrefutable facts that were part of history that were not included in the teaching of whites or blacks anywhere in the United States, right?
Yeah, correct. And I would say, so that's the omission part. Equally as important is we're exposed on a very regular basis to the idea of meritocracy in the United States, that people make it or not based on individual merit, that the playing field is level. Life, liberty, justice for all, land of the free. I was saturated with that ideology, which completely contradicts the facts I began to learn in that graduate school course. It was very hard to put those two things together, and it woke me up quickly.
Yeah, because obviously if you go into the world with the idea that this is a level playing field, everything is fair, my family has what they have because based on their own merit, when you look at a poor person or an underprivileged person who often is brown or black, you look at them and think, well, obviously your situation is of your own making.
Right. Didn't work hard enough. Maybe not, now here's all the things I was taught, or that I took away from my combination of teachings, inaccurate teachings, and missing history. Maybe, and stereotypes like, maybe not very smart, maybe lazy, maybe families don't care about education, maybe they don't know how to take care of their homes. It turns out, I now realize that I bought into very old and very deep ideas about natural order, that all humans actually aren't equal. So if you had asked me 15 years ago, do you think everyone is equal, I would have said, sure. Mm-hmm. Down deep, though, I hadn't. Down deep, I had bought deeply into ideas of male superiority, white superiority, class superiority.
So these things are, and they're, as you said, there are things that were omitted, and there's something called lying by omission. So you're basically being taught lies, even though the information is simply not being given to you. And it skews your worldview of everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the thing about, so it confuses and distorts my ideas of other people. But if I'm told that black people are less intelligent, the subtext there is that I'm exceptionally intelligent.
Right.
If I'm told that one category of people don't work hard, by default, it's telling me I'm from a group of people that do work hard.
Exactly.
So all of these superiority messages came to me, it often in very unspoken ways.
Yes, a lot of the messaging that's given, it's not overt. It's not a time where, you're seeing the racist posters with the, the little black pickaninny with the watermelon. It's not that overt anymore. But even, for example, something we hear said often now is representation matters. So young black girls seeing dolls that look like them, superheroes that look like them. All of these things reinforce an idea to them that they are a part of everything. And the absence of these images lets them know you're not a part of everything.
Exactly. Exactly. And in the case of white people who aren't even aware of the messaging that we've swallowed and we've internalized, it is very possible for a person to say, I don't have a racist bone in my body.
Exactly.
And in their conscious mind believe it. What I'm asking, let's go deeper, because you won't believe what you find when you go looking.
This is it. Now, Debbie, when you said that, you were raised in your white bubble and you're in your suburban neighborhood and in the United States, which I have noticed from over here is much more segregated than Canada. The suburbs tend to be white and the ghettos tend to be black. Now, you were saying the neighborhoods you didn't notice. In terms of proximity, how close were you to these neighborhoods? Were they far away?
Yeah, so in the suburb, so Boston has a very famous and tragic history around busing and desegregation. That was completely unknown to me, believe it or not, even though I was a young child growing up in that era, because my parents wanted to protect us and we didn't watch the news. So I was completely isolated in my white neighborhood, which was only 5 miles away.
Okay.
But I wasn't going in and out. I wasn't seeing it with my own two eyes. I had no opportunity to mingle with these kids because we were, of course, in completely different, day camps and schools and extracurricular activities by design, I would say. And if I'm not watching the news, I'm not exposed. And if I had been watching the news, the presentation of what was going on, I think would only have affirmed what I was being taught, that black people were dangerous and scary and irresponsible. So, it's almost it's a problem that's designed not to be solved. We are meant, you and I should not be talking. We are not meant to be speaking openly about this.
It's by design. Now, let me ask you a question, because I'm very interested to know this. When did you meet, and this sounds so silly, but when did you meet the first black person in your life?
When did I first meet a black person?
Yeah.
Not until after college, and I started working at WGBH, which is the big public broadcasting station in Boston. And that was my first job, and it was also the first job or an early job of my friend Herb. Herb was my first black friend. And it just made no sense to me because I had swallowed stereotypes, and he didn't fit any of them.
Right.
He was brilliant. He was ambitious. He was actually, I thought, much kinder and more open and supportive as a man than any of the white boys in my white preppy world. So he really stood out for me. We became very close very quickly, and we're still friends.
Debbie, to me, that's amazing. I was raised in a city called Montreal here in Canada, and the idea of being able to get all the way to my 20s without being friends with someone who looks like me is mind-boggling to me. That you were segregated for that long.
It is in the United States. It is very possible to go cradle to grave. For a white person, it's possible to go cradle to grave without ever having a black friend. It's harder the other way around because black people must integrate into white spaces to access education and jobs and basic life services.
But
yeah, it's very possible here.
That is amazing. We're going to cut for a quick break. I knew the hand was coming. We're going to cut for a quick break. And when we come back, I want to speak to Debby about everything, really, but we have limited time. So one of the questions I'm going to ask Debby is, why is it so hard to speak to white people about racism? So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Hello, my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager at the Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. Or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters. Today I have
Hi.
remotely Debby Irving. She's written a book called Waking Up White, and in the 10 minutes I've spoken to Debby, she's given me a lot to think about. Very interesting, your perspective going through life. Now, one of the questions, I just find it so interesting that you could literally go through so much, through your whole developmental stage, and never have encountered or befriended or gone to school with somebody of a different race. That is amazing to me. So, Debby, one of the questions that I'd like to ask is, now, the conversation of race, and this is why I'm so happy that you've joined us today, it often happens between the same race. White people will talk to white people about race, and black people will talk to black people about race, but we need to speak to one another. Now, one of the things is why do you think it's so challenging to speak to white people about racism? What is that barrier?
So I'm having some trouble hearing you, but I think you're asking what is it that makes race so hard? Why do white people in particular maybe have a hard time talking about race?
Yes.
Well, I can speak from my experience and from patterns that I see in the United States. I've barely worked in Canada, so I'll speak about the United States. In the U.S., white people are often taught, and have been, this is particularly true post-civil rights, we're taught not to see race, to be colorblind. Mm-hmm. And we're also taught that talking about race is rude. And so you'll often hear comments from white people saying, I don't even see race, or I don't even think of you as black, or I don't even think of you as, Asian, or I don't think of you as Latinx. And that's a real problem if you don't see a major piece of someone's identity. And it's also kind of sending a signal like it's a bad thing to see black, but I don't see it, so I'm a good person. So if you don't talk about something, it doesn't matter what it is. If I don't talk about football ever, I can't possibly know much about the game. I don't have the vocabulary. I'm not exploring concepts with people. The same is true with race. If I'm not talking about race, I don't have the vocabulary, I don't understand the concepts. So that's a piece of it. I don't know how to talk about it. Add to that, I'm terrified that someone might call me a racist or think I'm a racist. I might say something foolish and expose my ignorance or step on someone's toes. And the other thing for me that was always going on is I would be, if I were talking to a person of color, just looking at a person of color's face, stereotypes and memories would start coming to the surface. Mm-hmm. I had never examined them. And so I'd be trying to turn off this activity in my brain and concentrate on the conversation. And I had a hard time doing that.
You were comparing. So as you're talking to this person, you're thinking, well, you're not as rude as I thought you'd be, or you.
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's very interesting that, as you said, white people are taught to say they don't see race. It's kind of a politeness, right? That's showing that you're a better person by not bringing it up and not acknowledging it. Where, as you pointed out, it's a major part of what somebody is. It's like trying to not identify someone who's obviously a woman as a woman or a child as a child, right? You're leaving out a component of who they are. But I think as a white person, you can answer this. You have a lot more experience than most. When the average white person brings up race, do they feel attacked?
I think when the average person who's not an overt bigot brings up race, one of the most important things that we want to establish to a person of color is that we're good. We're one of the good ones. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the conversations focus on that bad white person over there. And without any real understanding of, wow, this is the way I experience race as a white person in this racially constructed society. That's a very different conversation than let's get together and talk about that bad white person over there. It's like gossip. It's like a form of gossip. And you and I we're going to make some deep connection.
Right.
And that connection is going to be established around the fact that I'm a good white person.
Yeah,
and
that
you're going to let
them,
me know
not
I'm
me.
a good white person. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes with some Black people trying to fit into those white spaces may also gravitate to the same type of conversation where I fit in with you. I'm a good, quote unquote, one. So I think that idea can also go both ways.
Yeah, we all have work to do to awaken from these social roles that we're conditioned into. And in the United States, we talk a lot about whiteness these days, and whiteness is not just what people look like, but it's sort of all of the cultural norms that we're asked to adhere to belong into a white-dominated society. And it includes being nice. It includes, and I mean nice, I'm a little being facetious there, it includes conflict avoidance and emotional restraint and some kind of a bravado, not admitting what you don't know. And those things all swirl together and create a lot of inauthenticity that undermines all of our relationships, not just cross-racially. They can keep us distant from anybody, but when it comes to race, it makes it really hard to navigate the complexity that's built into those relationships.
Debbie, now one of the gifts that you've given me besides your appearance here is you've also connected me with Dr. Eddie Moore Jr., who is one of the founders of the White Privilege Conference, which has been going on for the last 20 years, correct?
I believe he's the founder, yeah.
The founder, yes. So Eddie is also going to be joining us now remotely. So unfortunately, our conversation wasn't as long as I wanted it to be because of the technical difficulties. But if you are interested in reading the book as much as I am, it is called Waking Up White. And where would we be able to find it Debbie?
It's anywhere books are sold. So your bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's also in Kindle version or e-version and audio version.
Amazing. Debbie, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the connection with Dr. Moore. And I hope that you do stay on to watch the rest of the episode.
I am going to do that. Have a great conversation. He's an amazing human being.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. We will be right back after this break. The breaks are a little bit different today. And when we come back, I will have Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. He is the founder of the White Privilege Conference, which has been going on for over 20 years. And we're going to get some more insight into this race conversation from Dr. Moore after these messages.
Welcome to Shadow Auto.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and there on screen you see the gentleman that is joining us, Dr. Eddie Moore Jr., the founder of the White Privilege Conference, which has been going on for over 20 years. Welcome, Dr. Moore.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm very good, and thank you for joining us. So the first thing, before you introduce yourself, I had no idea that the conference has been going on as long as it has been.
Yeah, we actually celebrating our 20th year this year. But keep in mind, I started when I was 5, so I'm just turning 25 this year. But yes, seriously though, we're pretty excited to be an organization that's been looking at issues, quite frequently, regularly, high level. And so it's been quite remarkable to think this is our 20th year.
Anisha, can you turn him up a bit? Thank you. So 20 years now, white privilege is a buzzword that I've been hearing. I shouldn't even call it a buzzword, but it's a phrase that I've heard being used a lot in more recent times. So I'm very surprised that this conference has been going on for 20 years. So Dr. Moore, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what led you to this path of concentrating on racial conversations, white privilege, and how the conference came to be?
Yeah, and I'll go forward and backwards and forwards, mainly because, when I think about the life I'm living right now, the work I'm doing right now, it's something far greater than me. It's not something I grew up thinking, hey, someday I'm going to be the founder of the White Privilege Conference.
Right.
So when I think about 20 years and about where I am in my career and what I'm doing for a living, I started out wanting to play football. I grew up in Florida. I went to college to play football. After college, took a job at my old high school to coach football. I came back from a master's degree at another school in the States, mainly to coach college football. It was there that I got some real just kind of life lesson from a professor who said to me I was wasting my real potential pursuing football, where I could do more as a college professor than I could as a football coach. Okay. And it was really that challenge to go on to apply for my PhD. And in my PhD coursework, a professor who told us in our first class that you're not really committed to diversity. You're not really doing diversity work if you're not exploring issues of white supremacy, white privilege, and other forms of oppression. And so I had really never been engaged in the work at that level. And so it really sparked in me some interest, and it really was a part of how I did my research throughout my PhD process. And so when I finished my coursework, my old college that I originally came to play football contacted me about applying for a job as a director of their diversity program. And I applied, accepted the job. And one of the first programs I started was the White Privilege Conference. Because over those years, and really the number one thing that kind of sparked me to want to put this conference into the universe is I felt like there was too much kumbaya diversity. Like there was a lot of one-on-one, can we all get along? We're different, we eat different foods, we have different religions. I mean, all those things are important for a middle schooler, if you ask me. But for a grown person, an adult, to only be at that level around diversity, I felt like it was dumbing populations of people down, that we were not really, diversity was the only matter, that there was no really tough class. Mm-hmm. And so really one of the main catalysts of the White Privilege Conference coming to was my desire to create what I call the class for diversity, or the CrossFit class. I mean, this is considered kind of the high-level diverse course where people who are doing diversity work, especially white people, if you get paid to do diversity work, you should be demonstrating where you're going to do your work. And this is something I say to Debbie all the time that I appreciate. I mean, she made a living as a speaker doing diversity work and issues related to that. And I think she should be able to articulate to people where she goes to do her work. And so I wanted to create a space that was challenging, informative, action-oriented, but most importantly, would be a space where people who do this work could grow and so expand their skill sets. That's a little bit of a lot of stuff back and forth. And like I said, we're celebrating our 20th year White Privilege Conference.
Okay, I have a lot of questions. One of the first one is, what is diversity work? What is that exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, diversity is the earliest stages of, I think, really what we need to know about a world that is very different. I mean, involving very, very different people. I mean, there in Canada and places across Canada, of course, I mean, some folks there, you know, can see difference in diversity, so to speak, all the time. Where, as Debbie was talking, where she grew up in Boston, where I worked and lived for a long time in Iowa in the States, where I grew up in Florida, there's, I mean, I would argue some people of color growing up in the States as well, who lived segregated lives. And so diversity is really the term, to me, that introduces us to a world that's not isolated, that's not safe. And that if we're going to truly have a society where everybody gets treated like somebody, then we have to understand the components of difference that people bring to the table. And so what diversity allows us to do is to really talk about the difference that being, whether it's racial, whether it's class, whether it's religion, whether it's gender identity, so forth.
So a diversity worker would work in schools? Is that where you would find a diversity worker, or?
Yeah, you can find them in schools, you can in the workplace. I mean, diversity and inclusion, as they're often referred to, are some of the people working in these organizations, because, I mean, I'm sure y'all are facing this in Canada. I mean, every place I know is facing challenges around diversity. And it doesn't just have to be race. Sometimes it's gender. I mean, there are people in the workplace who've never had a woman as a boss. And so diversity is now bringing women into the workplace, and they're in charge. And so a lot of times we got to help people who've never been in that dynamic understand how to be positive in an environment where their supervisor is someone they've never experienced before. And I don't know about you, but I found myself, you know, I mean, here you are. I mean, you got your own show. I mean, at least in the States, that doesn't happen too often, right? You have a sister, you know, beautiful, talented, you know, right? And so for a lot of people, this may be the first time that they have someone that looks like you making the decisions, saying what needs to happen. And so what I do, and I think what people who do diversity work do, is really to be better at receiving, understanding the kind of changes that are happening, not only in our society, but also in our schools, in our workplaces. And so that's really what I call the first level, though. That's like 101.
Right.
I mean, like, we should all be able to, work and live and be productive in a society that's increasingly more and more diverse, whether it's Canada, whether the US. But
Right.
the next level is power and privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Often we're trying to create diverse place designed by white supremacy foundation, white supremacy belief. So it's really important. We're going to create a inclusive society that we understand the challenge that's pushed against us. And that's where things like the White Privilege Conference come in place.
Okay, well, I would like to know more about how you got the White Privilege Conference started and what is learned there. And quite honestly, when I looked at the White Privilege Conference and I saw that it was founded by a Black man, I was very surprised. So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk a bit about the White Privilege Conference, what you teach, and what are your goals? What do you want people to walk out of there knowing? So after this break, we will be right back with a Dr. Eddie Moore Jr.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity in our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and I'm here with Dr. Eddie Moore Jr., and as you see, he was signing up his got privilege, a little bit like the got milk sign. And, Dr. Moore, in the short amount of time that you have spoken, I have learned so much. So I thank you. Now, 20 years into the White Privilege Conference, which I saw that you also hold here in Toronto.
You said what you saw what?
You do have it in Toronto as well, correct?
Yes, we had one. We are now global. It's official. The White Privilege Conference is global White Privilege Conference at Ryerson University last year. Yes.
Amazing. Will you be coming back? Do you have Toronto on your roster for the next round?
Well, we're ready. Keep in mind, though, some of white privilege Toronto was the first time we had white supremacist groups live protesting the conference.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more that we have to consider when we come back. But if any organization, university is willing to host, we're ready to come back for White Privilege Global 2.
Okay, so that actually leads up to another question. I wish I knew that before. So 20 years into the White Privilege Conference, what is your goal? Not was, because it's continuing. What is your goal with the conference? What do you want people to leave knowing or understanding?
Yeah, I mean, one of the primary goals is everybody has privilege. That the White Privilege Conference, our foundational belief is everybody's got privilege. It's just manifested very differently in our lives. So that's number one. Number two, having privilege is not a bad thing all the time. So if you have an understanding of privilege, you could actually do some good things with it. Thirdly, is white privilege and other forms of oppressions extend from white supremacy philosophy, white supremacy belief, white dominant culture. And that if we're going to push back against those oppressions and those kinds of privileges, then we have to understand the birthplace, the foundation. We are really working hard to help people to even get comfortable saying white supremacy, to think beyond white supremacy as some person wearing a hood out in front of the building protesting friends. But we have white supremacists or alt-right folks who are now revamping white supremacist kind of public presentation, attending colleges and universities, working in businesses. And so it's really important that we have an understanding of this philosophy and how it shows up in our day-to-day still today.
And who attends your conference? Is it diversity workers? Who do you find comes to the conference? Who attends?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you mentioned something at the start of the break that's still very startling for a lot of people, which is one of my favorite things about the White Privilege Conference. It's Black owned. It's one of the few national, international conferences started by a Black person, ran by a Black person, unapologetically. So most people, when they hear White Privilege Conference, they think it's for white people. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I got to help people to understand. It's a diverse group of people that come to the White Privilege Conference, and people of color need to have some knowledge around this subject matter as well. And we have people that are diverse across other kinds of identifiers in reference to gender, class, so on and so forth. And we have people from diverse sectors of the community, of the workplace, from education to nonprofit to corporate. And so we've been you can imagine over the last 20 years, I mean, when you hear White Privilege Conference from a Black guy, it's been hard to get folks to even consider attending this conference. But I think recently, at least in the States, with Charlottesville and the white supremacists marching in the streets in Charlottesville, dealing with the young man that murdered those people right in the church house, believing in white supremacy. I think those two major incidents in the last couple of years have really got people thinking, I think, and feeling, I think, more and more that there needs to be some subject matter understanding of this concept. And that's one of the things I think the conference has accomplished over the 20 years is at least white privilege is something people have heard of now. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's where I'd like it to be, where it's in the schools and it's a part of the curriculum, but I feel like at least more and more people have some familiarity with the concept of privilege and particularly white privilege.
Amazing. And so what do you have coming up? I really wish we had more time, and I am going to connect with you because Privilege Conference. You're also a founder of another conference as well, correct?
Yeah. So the White Privilege Conference, we have a nonprofit called the Privilege Institute, and that nonprofit produces the White Privilege Conference, but also what we call our White Privilege Symposiums. In fact, a couple of years ago, Brock University in St. Catharines actually hosted a white privilege symposium. So we're bringing those all across the states as well as other places if they're interested. The Privilege Institute also has a summer camp. So I believe I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. So I love working with young people. So I created a summer camp that's cell phone free that helps young people learn about issues of diversity, leadership, and oppression. And so that's something else we have coming up this summer. And I have a couple new books that are just out. And so got some real exciting promotions around that. So I'm happy to share that with you and your audience. I'm happy to come back on the show with Debbie. And I'm also happy to be a resource. I consider us, I'm hoping I'm part of the What Matters family now.
Yes, you are.
In fact, I would ask when I'm on, you say, what matters more? And so we can do a special segment on power and privilege every now and then. So I appreciate the time, though. It's been great.
Absolutely. You just have the title for the new show. And, you know, it goes perfectly in with you. So tell us how we find you online, Dr. Moore. How do we connect?
Yeah, luckily my social media pages are connected to my name, Eddie Moore Jr., in reference to Twitter, in reference to Facebook. My website is www.eddiemoorejr.com. You can find more about some of the presentations I do as a consultant and some of the other programs that I have going on in that area. And then the Privilege Institute has a website under its name as well, www.theprivilegeinstitute.com. And then, of course, the White Privilege Conference as well. Shameless plug. We have a website under the conference's name. And this year we have actually a Canadian coming to be a keynote, Sister Ritu Basin, who is coming to drop knowledge at the White Privilege Conference. And we got some other great stuff coming up, celebrating our 20th year.
Amazing. Well, I would definitely love to have you both back. And when you're in Toronto, you definitely have to visit. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. To anyone out there, you know how to connect. You've got Debby Irving's website as well as Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. And the links will be up underneath the post. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for tuning in. And Dr. Moore, again, thank you for joining us. Anisha, thank you for all your technical work today. Very much appreciated. If you have any questions, comments, please put them underneath this post. Let's get this conversation going. If you got the privilege, use it to the advantage of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace. Erica, take care, sister.
Peace.
Peace.